The competition at the Royal Alzano Academy is still ongoing. The second-year class is caught up and is now in the lead. Holly and his students didn't expect the second-year class to change their ranking. This was also due to Glenn, who is their teacher. A man and a girl previously looked towards Glenn. The man said that they had parted ways with Glenn and accidentally saw him in that place. The girl was about to leave, but the man stopped her. The man's name is Albert, while the girl's name is Real. Ryle tried to leave again, but Albert stopped her once more. Real wanted to meet Glenn, but Albert refused. They both have a mission to monitor the royal guards. Albert received information about suspicious activities among the royal guards. Albert's leader was worried that the royal guards might be planning something against the queen. The students are having a party in the academy courtyard. They brought various foods and then enjoyed eating them. Glenn watched them, unable to do anything else. Suddenly, Lynn came and called Glenn. Glenn asked Lynn what she needed. Lynn asked Glenn to choose another student to replace her in the shape-shifting competition. Glenn considered it. Lynn said that she was having difficulty practicing even though she used the self-illusion spell. Glenn asked about Lynn's desire for the competition because he thought Lynn liked transformation magic. Lynn confirmed Glenn's statement and felt happy. Glenn told Lynn to participate in the competition. Lynn wasn't sure, so Glenn intended to teach her a lesson. He asked Lynn about her understanding of self-illusion. Lynn answered Glenn's question. Glenn added to Lynn's words and then recited the spell. A magic circle appeared at Glenn's feet and moved upwards. Glenn's body and voice completely transformed into Rumia. He could transform because he had imagined Rumia's form. He realized that Lynn's self-illusion failed because Lynn had difficulty imagining that form. Lynn said she wanted to transform into La Tilica, who is the angel of time. Glenn told Lynn to borrow a book and strengthen her imagination with it. He told Lynn to believe in her abilities and not to think about winning the competition. Lynn laughed at Glenn's voice. Then she accepted Glenn's advice. She said goodbye and then left Glenn. Suddenly, Sistine arrived and waved her hand to Glenn, who was still in the form of Rumia. She thought Glenn was the real Rumia and then invited him to have lunch. Glenn was very happy, but he tried to restrain himself. Sistine was surprised to see Rumia looking hungry. Glenn took Sistine's lunchbox and opened it. Inside were several sandwiches. He took one sandwich. As he was about to eat it, the real Rumia arrived. Rumia and Glenn were surprised to see each other. Sistine used magic and restored Glenn to his original form. Glenn intended to leave, but Sistine attacked him with magic and threw him upwards. She was upset because Glenn had turned into Rumia. She was also upset because she had woken up early to make the sandwiches. Glenn fell into the bushes. He didn't expect Sistine to throw him. Glenn held his stomach, which growled again. The competition continued, and Glenn just sat outside the arena. He felt confused and tired. Suddenly, Rumia came and brought a gift. The gift contained sandwiches and made Glenn very happy. Glenn's eyes sparkled, and he thanked Rumia. Then he immediately ate the sandwiches eagerly. He felt the harmonious combination of tomato, meat, and cheese inside the sandwiches. Glenn thought Rumia had made the sandwiches, but Rumia denied it. She intended to keep secret who made the sandwiches. She only told Glenn that the person made the sandwiches for someone but ended up not giving them. The person intended to throw the sandwiches away, so Rumia took them. Glenn finished eating and then stood up. Glenn intended to leave, but suddenly a woman approached him. Glenn rejected the woman, but he was surprised. The woman was Queen Alicia. Zelos asked a soldier about the missing queen. He ordered the soldier to immediately search for the queen. Celica asked the headmaster's opinion about the queen's disappearance. The headmaster was impressed because Celica was able to conceal the queen using her magic. A female assistant approached Celica. The assistant's name was Eleanor. She whispered something and startled Celica. Glenn saluted Queen Alicia. The queen asked about Glenn's condition after 1 year had passed. She ordered Glenn to lift his head. She bowed her head and apologized for being improperly expelled from the magic court. Glenn denied the queen's words. He told the queen to lift her head. Then he worried because there were no guards guarding the queen. The queen looked at Rumia and called her Ermiana. She asked about the life Rumia had lived with the Feibel family. She didn't expect to meet her daughter again. The queen reached out her hand, but Rumia denied the queen's words. She bowed her head and thought the queen was mistaken for considering her as the late Princess Ermiana. The queen believed Rumia's words. Then she apologized to Rumia. Rumia bid farewell and immediately ran away from the place. The queen thought Rumia found it difficult to accept her as her biological mother. She felt sad and then intended to leave. She told Glenn to take care of Rumia. The queen entered the arena gate. Zelos blocked her path, startling her. Suddenly, the guards raised their swords towards the queen. Zelos intended to secure the queen first. Someone witnessed the event with their powers. They didn't expect the royal guards to restrain the queen. They heard that Zelos had fought evenly with Johannes, who was a sword expert, and they believed that Zelos wouldn't act recklessly. It turned out to be Albert using magic. Riel was about to leave, but Albert stopped her again. Albert talked to Riel about the royal guards. He imagined the plan the royal guards were executing. Then Riel proposed a plan. She and Albert would attack the guards from the front. The long-distance weightlifting competition had begun. All participants dropped their weights, leaving only Teresa. Glenn was behind and not watching the match. He thought about the news that said Rumia was exiled because of her special powers. Suddenly, Sistine came, and Glenn became alert. Sistine said that Rumia was missing. Glenn was surprised, and then he told about the previous meeting between Rumia and her birth mother. He intended to go look for Rumia, so he asked Sistine to watch the class. Glenn immediately agreed to Sistine's request for help. He became excited after Rumia had given him sandwiches. Sistine was surprised and teased the sandwich maker. Glenn praised the food, making Sistine blush. He liked the sandwiches, which tasted delicious. He told Sistine not to tease the sandwich maker. Sistine was annoyed and told Glenn to leave. She was still embarrassed about the incident. In the academy courtyard, Rumia was sitting alone, looking at her locket. Suddenly, Glenn appeared behind her. Rumia said she felt there was a precious person's photo inside the locket. She found it quite strange. Glenn denied Rumia's words. Rumia realized that Glenn already knew about her relationship with the queen. She didn't know what to do about the queen. Rumia thought she was a demon incarnate because she was born with a special ability. Because it could damage the royal family status, she was exiled from the kingdom. She tried to rise above it, but she couldn't forgive the queen yet. She felt angry, but she also wanted to call the queen mother. She worried she would betray Sistine's parents if she did. Glenn expressed his opinion to Sistine. He thought it was difficult to make a choice. All choices would lead to regret in the end. He told Sistine to use her heart. If she chose with her heart, then Rumia's regret would be smaller. Glenn asked for Rumia's decision. Rumia was sad because she didn't understand her own heart. Glenn said he used to work as a sorcerer in the royal army. He often went to court and saw someone influential who had the same locket as Rumia. Glenn thought that person couldn't throw away the locket because it was precious to them. He told Rumia to face the choice with her heart. Actually, Glenn wasn't entitled to say that because he had run away too. Rumia felt scared when she saw the queen's cold gaze, so she asked Glenn to accompany her. Glenn had no choice and agreed to Rumia's request. Suddenly, the royal guards approached the two of them. The royal guards confirmed Rumia's name. Rumia affirmed, and then the royal guards directed their swords towards Rumia. They accused Rumia of plotting to assassinate Queen Alicia. They also threatened Rumia with the death penalty. Rumia was shocked by the royal guards' words. Glenn denied the accusation and asked for evidence. The royal guards refused to show the evidence. Glenn asked again, but the guard said that the accusation was the queen's order. They told Glenn to hand over Rumia. Then Rumia knelt and surrendered herself to the royal guards. She also asked the royal guards to release Glenn. Glenn was caught off guard, and a royal guard hit him. Then another royal guard took Rumia away from the scene. The royal guards tied Rumia to a tree. They ordered Rumia to close her eyes and not to move. Rumia had been waiting for the day someone would kill her. She remembered her mother, and then she cried. She thought her mother had visited her for the last time. She was grateful for making beautiful memories with her friends. Rumia was surprised when suddenly someone came. A dazzling light appeared, and then the royal guards were attacked by that person. Rumia saw the royal guards being defeated. The person untied Rumia, and that person was Glenn. Rumia asked why Glenn saved her. Glenn said that Sistine would scold him if he didn't save Rumia. Glenn told Rumia to calm down because he believed the queen wouldn't kill Rumia without bringing her to court. He thought someone had orchestrated the incident. Suddenly, other royal guards found the two of them. Glenn lifted Rumia, and then he recited a spell. A magical circle appeared, and Glenn could easily jump. He ran across the roofs of the houses. He was annoyed because problems always came his way. He thought about how to approach the queen. Glenn stopped because he got an idea. He went down and contacted Celica. Glenn asked for help, but Celica couldn't help him. Glenn was puzzled, but Celica said that she couldn't say or do anything. Glenn asked again, but Celica said the same thing. Celica said that only Glenn could solve the problem. She told Glenn to think about the meaning of her words. Glenn was annoyed because Celica hung up. He couldn't meet the queen because the royal guards and Commander Zelo surrounded the queen. He was frustrated with the situation. Suddenly, Albert and Riel arrived. Glenn didn't recognize the two because he couldn't see their faces clearly. Riel ran and then jumped. She swung her sword and caused an explosion in the area.